Good morning, folks. Today is March 11th, and I'm here on our homestead. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about controlled burns. What is a controlled burn? Controlled burn is where you put fire on the ground to control the leaf layer, the understory, undesirable species, wildlife control. Controlled burn is a very useful tool in a forester's toolbox. Today I went around on about 2.5, 3 acres of our 24-acre homestead, and I cut a fire break, which you can see part of it right back here. I cut a fire break around the sections that we are planning on burning. I know it's kind of odd talking about a controlled burn in a snowstorm, but next week, or the weekend I should say, the conditions look kind of favorable to have fire on the ground. So I went ahead and I did a little prep work today before going to work. What I've done is I went out with a rake and I scraped away the duff layer, the leaves, twigs, sticks, all the organic matter away from the topsoil, all the way down to bare soil. And I did this all the way around the section I do plan on burning. Let's get you turned around here. And snow cover is starting to conceal what I've done, but this is a 2-foot wide fire break that we've done around this property. And what this will do is, fire needs 3 things to survive and thrive. It needs heat, it needs fuel, and it needs oxygen. You take away one of those 3 items from the fire triangle and you don't have fire any longer. So what we've done here is we've removed the fuel. By removing the leaf and duff layer from the soil, when the fire hits this, it's going to die out. It doesn't have anything else to burn. So why do you want to put fire on the ground? Well, one of the reasons is to control undesirable species and to clean up your understory growth. This right here is a pretty big stand of wild blackberries. These don't produce very well because they are shaded out by the time summer rolls around. So they don't have the sunlight they need to produce the berries, and when they do produce berries, they're not very large. They don't taste that great. So by burning, we'll burn that out of the understory. Another method, and a reason you want to put fire on the ground. See here, I cut back into the woods. We're about 150 yards down one side of this section. And this, like I said, is a 2-foot fire break, which that's plenty big enough for what I plan on doing. I plan on putting a backing fire, meaning that if the wind is coming from the west towards the east, I'll set my fire on the east side and let it back into the wind. And by doing that, you end up with a slow, consistent burn that gets the majority of the leaf layer consumed. You end up with a beautiful fire mosaic when you're done. And that's one of those things that, every forester likes to see. Those of you that know me know I'm a trained forester. But you can't just come out and put fire on the ground. There is some prep work you have to do first. And one of the main things you have to do is you have to make sure conditions are correct for burning. Otherwise, it'll get out of hand quickly, and then you got problems. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have adequate fire breaks. And next week, when I do decide if the conditions are correct, I will come out here and I'll touch up this fire break some, make sure that nothing's falling across it, make sure none of the leaves are blowing across, in some place that fire can jump the line and start a fire on the other section that I have broken off right now. But then one of the other things you need to do is you need to look at your overstory layer. You need to make sure that you don't have any snags or deadfalls or widowmakers that are going to catch on fire, because that causes some substantial problems if you do. And I'll show you what I mean here. Right here is a cherry tree that the top is broken out of. That cherry tree is a snag or widowmaker, whatever you want to call it. And when those things catch on fire, and they normally have a tendency to fall across your fire line, and then you have problems if you're not prepared for it. So I'm going to do one of two things. I'm either going to drop that with a chainsaw, or I'm going to pull a leaf layer around it so that way it doesn't catch on fire. It doesn't get hot enough to catch on fire. And I might do that option because I do like having some snags on the property. They are beneficial for insect growth, which of course brings in songbirds and other birds, which me and my wife like to watch. But looking back here, this leaf layer is about 3 inches thick. I haven't done it on this section of the property in 3 years, I guess. So it got pretty thick in that amount of time. And so we got to get that cleaned up. And what that'll do is that'll open up bare soil, which will aid in germination of certain species. You know, some species like red oaks, they require a stratification or a scarification of the seed coat to germinate. But getting rid of undesirable species, like right here, we have a Amur honeysuckle. This right here grows all throughout my property, and it's kind of a pain. I want to get rid of as much of it as I can. However, my brother would beg to differ. He likes it because it's one of the first flowering plants and one of the later flowering plants that his bees like to congregate to. But I got enough of it on my place. I'm not going to be able to get rid of it all at once, so there'll be plenty for the apiaries around here. So I'm going to try to get rid of as much of mine as I can. Walking along this fire break. Like I said, snow's covered it up and concealed most of it, but you can see where it goes. And I said it's 2 foot wide. 2 foot's about the minimum you want. Any less than that, fire can hop it. And I mean, you can go all the way up to wherever you want, but 2 foot's about the minimum I like to do for safety reasons. Like I said, I'll come back and I'll clean up this break a little bit next week. I'm not going to do it in the snow this week. But trees like elms and maples, your understory growth that you don't want, the undesirables, like the wild blackberry back there that does not produce, the Amur and the high bush honeysuckle, and that's kind of a nuisance. Your autumn olive, but you got to be careful with that. Fire will kind of tick that stuff off, and then you have a problem on your hand. So you got to be careful with burning that. But the majority of our property is mainly oak and hickory, which is what we like to keep. Even though I do like to make maple syrup, I think a maple tree is a weed. I don't like having too many of those on our place. Yeah, I took the fire break all the way right up to the creek, and I'll buck up part of that log next week, so it won't be a problem. But the creek acts as a natural fire break. I got the trail back behind me. That acts as a natural fire break. What do you do about wood piles and slash piles and stuff along that nature? Well, when we purchased this property, they cleared off a section to build a house, but they never did. They pushed up the trees into a pile, and that left those slash piles, and they have finally started to deteriorate enough that they're not a great big tangled mess anymore. But fire will help consume that stuff too. That's good. That adds organic matter back into the soil, which is what you want. But just want to give you an update on what I'm doing on the homestead today before I head to work. And if you stay tuned in the weeks ahead, I will show you what a controlled burn looks like. Until next time, God bless. Thanks for watching.